Part 116. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1153. 1151. On the other hand, the Huo family is a little deserted. Huo Yingjun and Zhao Huan were in Su country with their children. Huo Yingjia was on a business trip. Without the two young men, there was a lot less excitement at home. Fortunately, there are many children at home, which buffers the loneliness. In order to live a more lively time this year, Huo Jekan and Zhang Lifang came to the Huo family's old house early with their daughters-in-law, grandchildren, and everyone got things for the new year together. Because they participated with their own hands, everyone was very busy and forgot about the deserted feeling. Mr. Huo had two sons chatting with him, but he didn't think anything of it. On New Year's Eve, everyone watched the Spring Festival Gala and ate dumplings together. The children couldn't stand it any longer and went to bed early. Mrs. Huo and her two daughters-in-law, He Tian, were talking below. Mr. Huo and his two sons were talking in the study. This year the house has been deserted, Mr. Huo lamented. Yingjia, Yingjun, Huan are all outside. I miss them a little. It's a bit deserted, Huo Jekian said, but you can see Yingjun when he comes back in March next year. This is the only way, Mr. Huo said, looking at Huo Jekan again. Yingjia has gone to the base, and he doesn't know when he will be able to complete the mission and come back early. Huo Jekan smiled bitterly and said, Lifang, Tian has been waiting at home all day long, hoping that Yingjia will come back soon. However, I don't think Yingjia can come back in the short term. After all, we can remove Yingjia from such an important research institute. To be transferred away must be to do more important and more difficult things. Yes, Mr. Huo said, elites and handsome men are the pillars of the country. We are worried when our children are not successful, and we are also worried when our children are successful, Huo Jekian said. Now that handsome and talented people have grown up, the three generations of our Huo family should be fine. The younger generation below are also smart, so take good care of them. Education can also become the backbone of our Huo family in the future. When Huo Jekan heard this, he quickly said, Brother, you have worked in Yanjing for so many years, how can you just quit at the drop of a hat? If it doesn't work, work for another term. He is used to being outside, but his eldest brother has been in Yanjing. He is a little worried that his eldest brother will not adapt to the outside environment. Besides, Huo Jekan felt bad about asking his eldest brother to make way for him. Second brother, actually you have to think about it this way. Whether our Huo family can become the top wealthy family in Yanjing depends on whether you can rise to the top. Furthermore, although I have been operating in Yanjing for many years, I know my abilities and will definitely do my best. If you can't reach that position, you must not only have family background, but also have ability, Huo Jekian said. That's why I want to make way for you, not only for you, but also for us Huo. Home. Mr. Huo was very happy to see his two sons loving each other. Seeing that the old man was silent, Huo Jekian looked at his father and asked, Father, what do you think? Mr. Huo thought for a while, looked leisurely, and said with a smile, it's actually very simple. The boss can be assigned to work in a certain province. Although your eldest brother is only young, he has been down there for a while, so he should be able to cope with this position. At the same time, he can be more relaxed with your younger brother in the capital. Your elder brother is right, your goal is to come back to that position. Huo Jekan was stunned. He didn't expect that his father and eldest brother would think so. Father, brother, do you really think I can take the position? Huo Jekan asked cautiously. Over the years, his work in Nanchi has been obvious to all, and he has published a lot of theoretical support for reform, but he does not feel that he with that kind of qualifications. Second brother, you can do it, Huo Jekian said. Your articles and opinions are very novel, but they also make sense. Huo Jekan smiled coquettishly and said, "It only means that I think ahead of others, or that I am bolder than others and dare to say things that others dare not say." "Haha, this is not just about being brave," Huo Jekian said. "Some people don't have such foresight at all, but you can see what others can't see, think of what others can't think of, and you can also, if you can think ahead of others, you are a top talent. But I can't. Relying on the resources at home and my own efforts have come to an end. It will be difficult to take another step, so it's not me who wants you to do it. It's the Huo family that needs you to go up, and you also have the capital to go up." Mr. Huo nodded and said, "Well, the boss is right, Jekan, what your elder brother said is also what I meant. Last time I went to Mr. S place, Mr. Eldest also revealed this meaning in a vague way, implying that we had made plans in advance. Me and your elder brother has been discussing it for a long time and thinks it is feasible, so I will come back during the Chinese New Year to talk to you. If you have any ideas or concerns, tell them all. There are only 3 of us here, and they will not be spread out." Hearing his father's words, Huo Jekan felt relieved and said, "Since my father and eldest brother think I can do it, then I will try my best to pursue it. Besides, when we pursue an official career, don't we just want to do more political achievements?" "Well, that's it," Mr. Huo said. "The most important thing is that you 2 brothers can support each other. By the way, boss, you should also pay attention to who you should bring with you, and figure out in your mind who you should bring. I will also give you a few connections." Huo Jekan looked at his elder brother and said, "Brother, don't worry, I also have a useful talent here who you can use in your local area." "Haha, okay, let's exchange ideas," Huo Zhe said with a smile. "I'll work hard outside, and maybe I can move up to the next level and retire after I come back." "That's for sure," Mr. Huo said. "When you retire, Yingjun will take over and won't block his way. As for Jekan, who is young, he can still work for a few more years. As for Yingja, we don't have to worry about it, and no one can touch it." The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1154. 1152. The father and son were very happy. Locked in the room, I deduced step by step the layout for the coming year, considered various emergencies and remedies, and planned ahead. Women just eat and drink, play cards, take care of the children, and entertain relatives and friends. Relatives and friends come and go to visit and celebrate the New Year in a lively manner. The New Year is not completed until after the Lantern Festival. Her father-in-law had already returned to Nanji. Zhang Lifang was reluctant to leave and stayed until the 16th day of the first lunar month. "Tian, I heard your father-in-law said that in a few months, we can return to Yanjing," Zhang Lifang said, "so I still need you to take care of Yanjing. When I come back, I will help you." Tian smiled and comforted her mother-in-law. "Mom, Dad's health is the most important thing. You just need to take good care of Dad's health. You and yourself should also take care of your health. I can handle the things here, so you don't have to worry. Anyway, she has been here all these years. They are her own children and her own life. She doesn't feel bitter." Zhang Lifang was moved and nodded. "Good boy, I will leave the family to you." Her husband left early, and Zhang Lifang was always worried that her husband would not take care of her. That person seems to have no other hobbies except being an official. After the mother-in-law left, the children went to school. Tian also conducted intense training because this year is the 1988 Olympics held in South Korea. It is said that this country likes to blow whistles, and this time it is the host. Tian has to show her absolute strength to put an end to those little tricks. The national team attaches great importance to the swimming team, especially Tian, and does not allow any mistakes. Coach Wu called Zhu's Hitao over to discuss a training plan suitable for Tian. "Xiao Zhu, this year can be said to be the most critical year in your life. If He Tian Tian can win the gold medal, you will be a hero and establish your future status. At the same time, He Tian Nation's achievements are not just a gold medal. So you must pay attention to He Tian Nation's training, Coach Wu explained. When necessary, use closed training. When Zhu's Hitao heard this, he was a little embarrassed and said, "Head coach, closed training is useful for others, but it is probably not of much use to teacher He. From the holiday last year to the start of training this year, teacher He has been so long there has been no training, but her physical indicators are higher than those of other athletes. At the same time, her speed has improved compared to years ago, which shows that she rarely trains at home and lives a very self-disciplined life." "Yes, I understand. Don't I want to improve He Tian Nation's performance to a higher level," Coach Wu said, with a smile on his face, and he was very proud. He Tian Nation's performance is his performance. Zhu's Hitao was a little embarrassed and said, "Head coach, you also know that the reason why teacher He chose to go home and not live in the training center was because of family reasons. Now teacher He's husband, as a top military expert, has been transferred to participate in major projects. Teacher He's parents-in-law have returned to Nanxi again, leaving teacher He alone to take care of the 4 children. If you give her closed training, I don't think teacher He will agree." That's a bit difficult to handle." Coach Wu frowned. "Don't teacher He only have 3 children in his family? Why did it become 4 again? Nowadays, family planning does not mean you can have a baby just because you want to. Besides, He Tian Tian has been competing one after another and has no time to have children." Zhu's Hitao smiled and explained, "He Tian Tian adopted a kidnapped child. The parents of the child have not been found at the police station, so teacher He will temporarily adopt him. With so many children, she will definitely not be at ease, so I think the training is not suitable for teacher He." "That's right," Coach Wu said. "Okay, you can communicate with teacher He. If it doesn't work, forget it. But from now on, what she eats must follow the athlete's diet, and she must be checked regularly. Also, even if you are sick, don't take medicine randomly, only need to be prescribed by the team doctor." Zhu's Hitao breathed a sigh of relief, nodded and said, "Well, I am her coach, and I will remind her carefully." Zhu's Hitao was afraid that Coach Wu would insist on letting He Tian Tian come for closed training. He Tian Tian had family troubles and was not used to closed training, so he would definitely not agree. Fortunately, Coach Wu did not insist. From now on, he only needs to supervise He Tian Nation's training and diet. "Well, we must pay attention to it," Coach Wu said. Not only did he take it seriously, but the people in the sports bureau also took it very seriously. He Tian Tian is training and Kui Ying is helping to find time. Zhu's Hitao walked in, looked at the time, and was very surprised. He said, "There has been progress. The training during this period is still beneficial. Come on, teacher He." He Tian Tian came up to rest for a while and said, "This year is the Olympics. I will work hard to achieve the final results. At such an old age, I guess this will be the last time I participate in the competition, so I will try my best." "Well, teacher He has never made people worry," Zhu's Hitao said. "Now everyone from top to bottom is optimistic about you. Even me, the coach, is counting on you. Everything depends on you." "It seems a little stressful," He Tian Tian smiled and said, "but I will try my best. Don't be nervous, just let nature take its course, and you will win." "What if being nervous affects your performance?" Zhu's Hitao comforted him. "Don't be nervous." "I know," He Tian Tian agreed. Just as she was about to leave, she remembered that Yunhua came to her house with his daughter in his arms with red eyes 2 days ago. When she asked Yunhua, Yunhua briefly said that her mother-in-law was making trouble. "Head coach, I'm resting. Can we talk about some private matters now? If you have something to say, just say it." Zhu's Hitao smiled, "I'll be all ears." He Tian Tian said softly, Zuz Hitayo, is there something wrong with your relationship with Yunhua? Zuz Hitayo was confused and frowned. No, we have a good relationship. Then why did Yunhua come to my house with his child and cry all the time the day before yesterday? He Tian asked. When you got married, Yunhua had no mother. I was Yunhua's teacher. The wedding was attended by female elders. At the beginning, I said that I was Yunhua's family. She cried like that, so I naturally came to ask. Zuz Hitayo was stunned, thinking of what happened the day before yesterday, and his face was a little embarrassed. Hey, it's all my fault. I didn't handle the matter between my wife and my mother well, Zuz Hitayo said, feeling a little sorry for Yunhua. What's the matter? He Tian asked. Tell me. Yunhua didn't tell me, and I was very busy these days, so I didn't go to investigate. Now that I have time, I will ask. You are a family, so of course I have to listen carefully to what you say. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1155. 1153. In fact, He Tian already knew a little bit about it, but she hoped that Zuz Hitayo could figure it out on his own. After all, it was their husband and wife's business. If even the person involved doesn't think it's a big deal, even if she talks nonsense, it won't help. Hey, after my brother got married, my parents gave the old house to my brother as a wedding room, and then they came to live with us, Zuz Hitayo said with an embarrassed look on his face. Oh, so that's it? I can probably guess a few situations, He Tian said. It's just your parents moving here. Is it temporary, or are you planning to live there forever? They want to live with me. After all, I am the eldest son. Zuz Hitayo's voice was a little soft, a little out of breath. He Tian thought for a while and said, then have you ever thought about your father-in-law's feelings? My father-in-law agrees and has no objection, Zuz Hitayo replied, not thinking anything was wrong. He Tian looked at Zuz Hitayo with an idiotic expression. Of course your father-in-law can't object. You can't just drive them away after your parents come to stay for a few days. But this is a family matter between you and Hua and Zuz Hitayo, and He Tian can't say too much. I remember that Yuanhua also has real estate in other places. Have you never thought about letting your parents live there? He Tian asked. It's human nature. After all, the two parents occasionally move around and they are relatives. After a long time, they will live there. It's not comfortable to sit there. Look around you, there are several families living in the same courtyard. Yuanhua only has one old father, so she won't let her old father be wronged. Zuz Hitayo scratched his head and said, no way. After I went back, it looked pretty good. There are no contradictions. He Tian confirmed that Zuz Hitayo was either pretending to be stupid, or he also had the potential of a phoenix man. But thinking about Yuanhua and Zuz Hitayo's child Zhu Xiaoxiao, He Tian felt soft and persuaded. Zuz Hitayo, you should understand this matter well and deal with it, otherwise it will affect your family and even your family marriage. Can't you? Zuz Hitayo said. Didn't Yuanhua say nothing? He Tian squinted her eyes, looked at Zuz Hitayo, and said slowly, Zuz Hitayo, Yuanhua didn't say it because he loves you. If he did, it means he is completely disappointed with you and no longer wants this marriage. Today let me remind you, if you don't pay attention or take action, you will definitely wait until the matter reaches that point. If you come to me to intercede, I will not intercede with you because it is obvious that it can be prevented and solved in advance, but you don't do it. Solve. He Tian also took it seriously. One cannot pretend to be ignorant and think that others should accommodate him. How can there be so many good things in the world? Teacher I. Zuz Hitayo felt bitter in his heart. He understood what teacher he said, but he was also in a dilemma. There are other houses at home, but my parents said they like this courtyard house. His father-in-law seemed kind and amicable, and Zuz Hitayo couldn't talk about his parents, so he just acquiesced. He also knew that his parents had some objections to Yuanhua, but they were a family after all, so he didn't say anything. Yuanhua had been wronged, and he knew it, but those were his parents, so he couldn't quarrel with them. He Tiantian was speechless. She thought Zuz Hitayo could say something responsible, but he Tiantian was disappointed. Zuz Hitayo said nothing. Not to mention pulling him down, he Tiantian was disappointed anyway, and she would not persuade him to make peace in the future. Yuanhua is a person with ideas and she will handle her own life well. Think about it carefully. I'm going to train, he Tiantian said, looking at such a man made him angry. The day's training was over. He Tiantian took a shower, changed clothes, and prepared to leave. I met Jiao Lihong at the door. Jiao Lihong smiled brightly and said, Teacher we will practice relay tomorrow, so you should come early. Okay, he Tiantian said, I won't be late. She has a daily training schedule in her hand, and she never arrives late or leaves early. Haha, see you tomorrow then, Jiao Lihong said, smiling enthusiastically. He Tiantian and Kui Ying were a little puzzled, but they didn't understand why. Isn't this girl always looking higher than her head and disdainful of interacting with her colleague He Tiantian? Why are you so enthusiastic today? Abnormality must be accompanied by monsters. See you tomorrow then, He Tian nodded, turned around and left together. When they got to the car, He Tiantian asked in confusion, what does Jiao Lihong mean? Kui Ying shook her head and said, I don't know. She has been training today. Didn't she do anything unusual? Just think of it as a friendly greeting, He Tiantian said, don't think too much. Anyway, just pay attention tomorrow. The whole team is training hard now, so she shouldn't be able to make any mistakes. Who knows, Kui Ying said, I'll go investigate tomorrow. Well, let's investigate clearly, He Tiantian said, be prepared. I've written it down, Kui Ying said, getting angry thinking about Yuanhua. Tiantian, I hate that Zuz Hitayo now. I understand what you just said, but he pretends to be confused even though he understands. Humph, He Tiantian sneered, such a person will regret it sooner or later. Why didn't you just say it? Kui Ying asked, after all, you are the athlete that Zuz Hitayo values the most, so maybe you can help by talking about it. I've said everything that should be said, and I won't say anything that shouldn't be said, He Tiantian said, after all, this is what happened between Yuanhua and Zuz Hitayo. I have already pointed out the reason, and Zuz Hitayo hasn't said it yet. Try to change. Do you think such a man living with Yuanhua will make Yuanhua happy? After all, they are Zuz Hitayo's parents. They are both in good health and will not die in a short time. So in this case, then long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. Kui Ying was stunned for a moment, then said cautiously, even if Yuanhua and Zuz Hitayo get divorced, you won't stop them. Why should I stop them? He Tiantian asked, they don't want that relationship, so why should I stop them? That's right, Kui Ying said, Yuanhua's mother-in-law is just too much. Yuanhua has other houses for them to live in, but they don't go there and insist on squeezing in. It's obviously aimed at Yuanhua's father. Do you remember right? When Yuanhua got married, her mother-in-law had a bad face and a bad butt, which made her look off-putting. Hey, I thought that such a situation would happen at that time, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon, He Tiantian said. I hope Yuanhua can resolve this matter as soon as possible. Let's just say that Zuz Hitayo was in a trance. When he returned to the office, his mind was confused. Hey, my career is already stable, but my family is obviously very good. Why has it become like this? Now after get off work, he would rather be at work than return to his original warm home. Recommend your new book Rebirth of Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent. After a new life, Mo Xiaomi deeply felt that it was imperative to embrace a golden thigh. But a certain man, where are you hugging me? Xiaomi, the third leg is also a leg. A certain man, well, hold me tight for the rest of my life. This is the story of a little girl who deliberately tried to hug someone's thigh but was counterattacked. She cutely and stupidly pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger, and then made a gorgeous counterattack and reached the pinnacle of her life. Please vote for recommendation and collect it. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1156. 1154. At that time, as soon as he got off work, he couldn't wait to go home. Because I have a beautiful and gentle wife and a lovely daughter at home. But now, as soon as I get home, my mother scolds me, Yuanhua is silent, my daughter dodges, and my father-in-law sighs. In fact, he knew it, he just didn't want to change it. Tianation's words today made him panic. He was worried that his marriage was really coming to an end. But he really likes Yuanhua and his daughter, but he can't be disobedient to his parents. Dilemma. Coach Wu passed by the door of Zhu's Hitao's office and saw that there was still light inside. He opened the door and came in. He saw that Zhu's Hitao was smoking alone and asked, "It's so late, why don't you go home?" Seeing this, Zhu's Hitao stood up and said, "Go back immediately, head coach, I'll clean up here." Seeing that Zhu's Hitao looked worried but didn't say anything, Coach Wu couldn't say much. He nodded and said, "If there is something, deal with it quickly and have a good rest." "I understand," head coach Zhu's Hitao agreed. After Coach Wu left, Zhu's Hitao slowly picked up his coat and briefcase, got up and left. Because Yuanhua's income was high, Zhu's Hitao had been assigned a car the year before last. Even if it rained outside, Zhu's Hitao didn't need to get wet and could drive home directly. Zhu's Hitao was in a depressed mood. He returned home all the way and went directly to the study to avoid his mother's nagging. Zhu's Hitao didn't come out of the room until it was time to eat. There were only father and mother at the dinner table. Zhu's Hitao asked, "Mom, where are Yuanhua and Xiao Xiao? By the way, it's time to eat. Why doesn't father-in-law come over to eat?" Mother Zhu frowned and said unhappily, "There are so many problems with eating, so hurry up and eat." Upon hearing this, Zhu's Hitao was unhappy. This was at home. When the time came, even if his wife, children, and father-in-law didn't come back for dinner, there was a reason. His mother didn't even have a decent reason, which made Zhu's Hitao unhappy. He looked at his father and said, "Dad, tell me what's going on? It's impossible for 3 people to go out without telling the family." Zhu's father felt embarrassed, but he was not as shameless as his wife. He said sarcastically, "Xiao Xiao has a fever, Yuanhua sent the child to the hospital." Xiao Xiao was sick, so his father-in-law was probably worried and went with him. When Zhu's Hitao heard this, he was very angry and said, "Xiao Xiao is sick, why didn't you tell me?" Mother Zhu was unhappy and said, "As soon as you come back, you go into the study and I don't have a chance to say anything." "Then I came out, why didn't you tell me?" Zhu's Hitao said anxiously, "Stop telling me, do you know which hospital the child is in?" Zhu's father and Zhu's mother looked embarrassed. They didn't know which hospital the child had gone to. The daughter-in-law was so angry just now, and they didn't dare to ask. "Dad, Mom, that's because your granddaughter is sick. It's fine if you don't follow me to the hospital. You don't even know which hospital to go to. You disappoint me so much," Zhu's Hitao said loudly. Zhu's mother was not happy and scolded, "After worrying about the eldest brother, I also have to worry about the younger ones. You think I am a god with 3 heads and 6 arms?" Regardless of the quarrel with his mother, Zhu's Hitao stopped eating and took the car keys and went out. There should be several hospitals nearby, search one by one. It was dark outside, and Zhu's Hitao's heart felt cold. At the same time, he was a little scared, afraid of seeing Yuan Hua's disappointed eyes, his daughter's accusing eyes, and his father-in-law's helpless expression. After Zhu's Hitao left, Zhu's father felt a little uneasy and said, "Son, I'm angry." "It doesn't matter if you are angry, we are still his father and mother." Mother Zhu said, "That girl, Pianzi, doesn't just have a fever? Just take some antipyretic medicine, her children are precious." Zhu's father was a little worried and said, "Zhitao only has one child, so we can't do too much. After all, we still have a daughter-in-law. What's there? What's the use of making money? I can't give birth to a son." Zhu's mother said, "Now only the grandson of the second family can carry on the family lineage of the old Zhu family. If we don't help a little, all these things won't be there in the future in the hands of that little girl. Hey, you see, they and their husbands often quarrel because of these things. It's good that Yuanhu has endured it so far. You should restrain yourself. You didn't see the look in Yuanhu's eyes just now. After all, this time it was our fault in taking care of Xiao Xiao." Father Zhu said, trying to persuade his wife not to go too far. Mother Zhu curled her lips and said with a smile, "So what if you do it? She is a woman who has already been married, and she still wants a divorce. It is easy for men to find a second marriage, but it is difficult to find a woman, especially a woman with a child. It's even harder to find a home." Zhu's mother looked confident, which made Zhu's father a little uneasy. Hey, in fact, although he couldn't stand it, he didn't stop his wife. Deep down in his heart, he hoped that the family's financial situation would be good and he would help the second family. Zhu's Hitao's family searched from hospital to hospital, and finally found their daughter, who was receiving an infusion in the infusion room at the third hospital. Yuanhu hugged his daughter and talked to her in a low voice. The father-in-law was feeding Xiao Xiao by the side. Xiao Xiao had no appetite, and the father-in-law kept coaxing him. Seeing such a scene, Zhu's Hitao's eyes were a little sore and he was a little dissatisfied with his parents. "Xiao Xiao, Daddy is here." Zhu's Hitao walked over quickly. "Dad, give it to me, I will feed Xiao Xiao." When Xiao Xiao saw her father coming, she didn't smile as brightly as she did every time she saw her father. Instead, she turned her head and lay on her mother's arm, ignoring her father. Seeing his daughter like this, Zhu's Hitao felt even more uncomfortable. It seems that Xiao Xiao has changed since his parents lived with them. "Yuanhua, have you eaten?" Zhu's Hitao asked cautiously. Yuanhua's expression made him feel uncomfortable. Yuanhua smiled distantly and said, "I've eaten." "Xiao Xiao, let grandpa hold you, okay? Mommy needs to go to the bathroom." "Okay," Xiao Xiao nodded, and then sat on his grandfather's lap. He is very well behaved and very dexterous, and there is no rolling needle on the needle. Zhu's Hitao wanted to accompany the woman, but Yuanhua had already pulled him out. "Yuanhua, why did you drag me out?" "I'll be with my daughter," Zhu's Hitao said, feeling a little guilty. To be honest, he didn't dare to face Yuanhua. Yuanhua still pulled Zhu's Hitao away without saying a word. "Zhu's Hitao, let me tell you something," Yuanhua said, looking at Zhu's Hitao. His eyes had no emotion. More than a year of quarrels and grievances have worn away the love in Yuanhua's eyes. Zhu's Hitao didn't dare to look into Yuanhua's eyes and quickly lowered his head. Yuanhua didn't care, and Yu said, "This kind of life has consumed the relationship between us, and I don't want Xiao Xiao to live in the self-blame and abuse of her elders all day long. She is a girl, and your parents may not value her, but she is my everything, even more important than you, so I don't want to wrong my children or myself. I will ask a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement as soon as possible, and I hope you will sign it as soon as possible. Recommend your new book Rebirth of Sweet Wife, the strongest agent, Qin Liban's recommendation vote, collect it. After a new life, Mo Xiaomi deeply felt that it was imperative to embrace a golden thigh. But a certain man, where are you hugging me? Xiaomi, the third leg is also a leg. A certain man, well, hold me tight for the rest of my life. This is the story of a little girl who deliberately tried to hug someone's thigh but was counterattacked. She cutely and stupidly pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger, and then made a gorgeous counterattack and reached the pinnacle of her life. The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 1157. 1155. Although Yuanhua was sad, she still said it after careful consideration. In this marriage, she couldn't feel love, and her daughter also grew up in a bad family environment. This was very bad, so Yuanhua didn't want to endure it anymore. Yuanhua, what are you talking about? We are doing well, why should we divorce? Zhu Zhitao said, why are you so angry? Tell me, we live well and cannot divorce. Yuanhua looked at Zhu Zhitao, his eyes full of disappointment. Don't you know what I feel wronged? Don't you know the little grievances I have suffered? Yuanhua sneered, you know everything, but you pretend not to know and let me and my daughter suffer. Go and be filial your parents. Zhu Zhitao was a little embarrassed, and said in a lower voice, those are my parents, I can't kick them out. I am an outsider, you don't have to care about me, but Xiao Xiao is your biological daughter. How do you treat Xiao Xiao? How do your parents treat Xiao Xiao? Yuanhua sneered, you know everything in your heart, you are just pretending to be confused. My dad was not at home all day. When he came back in the evening, your mother actually made Xiao Xiao stand outside and said that our family was short of food. Just treat my daughter like this. Zhu Zhitao looked pale. He understood why Yuanhua was angry. Xiao Xiao was Yuanhua's weakness. The parents went too far this time. Then we can't divorce. If you divorce me, won't Xiao Xiao become a child of a single-parent family? Zhu Zhitao said, I will talk to my mother when I get back and ask her to treat Xiao Xiao better in the future. It's too late, Yuanhua said, I have been disappointed with you. I gave you many opportunities, but you didn't take it to heart. The child is not feeling well, and I don't want to quarrel in front of the child. You can go. As long as you are a little bit conscious, take a look at the video at home and you will know why I said that. Zhu Zhitao was a little sad, but his daughter was still fetching water. How could he go back? No matter what, today, we have to take the old and the young back home. When Yuanhua came back, he saw that the water for the small diaphragm was almost gone, so he called the nurse. After pulling out the needle, Yuanhua hugged the child, got up and left. Let me hold the baby, Zhu Zhitao said guiltily, after all, the baby is not young, so don't be tired. No need, I love my own daughter. After Yuanhua finished speaking, he hugged the child and left. Zhu Zhitao looked at his father-in-law, but his father-in-law shook his head in disappointment, followed his daughter and left carrying her things. Zhu Zhitao looked at Yuanhua's back, feeling a little sad and panicked. Yuanhua put the child directly on the back seat of the car. Yuan's father hugged the sleeping child and closed the car door. When Zhu Zhitao caught up, Yuanhua had already started the car and was about to leave. Yuanhua, come home with me. Zhu Zhitao was scared, worried that Yuanhua would not go home after leaving. Yuanhua looked at Zhu Zhitao and said, go back and tell your parents not to touch the things in my house. I have already taken pictures. Don't try to empty my house. After saying that, Yuanhua drove away, ignoring Zhu Zhitao behind him. Zhu Zhitao was a little angry when he saw Yuanhua leaving. Why couldn't he be coaxed? Thinking about Yuanhua's last sentence, Zhu Zhitao's face felt a little hot. His parents did often take things from home to his second brother's house. Zeus Hitayo hadn't noticed anything missing at home, but the last time he went to his second brother's house, he found that many of the things in his second brother's house looked familiar. For example, the antique vase, the landscape paintings on the wall, and the screen that Yuen Hua likes very much at home. The scariest thing is that after Zeus Hitayo returned home, he found that the TV in the living room was missing. No need to think about it, the TV has also arrived at my brother's house. He knew all this, but he still didn't say anything. Yuen Hua didn't say anything, so he thought Yuen Hua didn't care. In fact, Yuen Hua kept everything in mind and was waiting for him to say it. But he didn't say anything. Hey, hurry up and follow him to see where Yuen Hua went. Zeus Hitayo drove behind and saw Yuen Hua's car entering Jinhua community. They seemed to have a house here. When he saw Yuen Hua carrying the child upstairs, he left with confidence. When Zeus Hitayo came home, he saw his parents eating melon seeds and watching TV. They were not worried about Xiao Xiao at all. Come back, Father Zhu asked. Xiao Xiao, are you feeling better? The fever has gone down after I gave him some fluids, Zeus Hitayo replied and looked at his parents. Where is that person? Mother Zhu asked. How rare is it that I have to go out to greet them? Seeing that his son looked unhappy, Father Zhu quickly grabbed his wife and said, don't listen to your mother, come on, let's go see Xiao Xiao. Zhu's mother looked impatient, but seeing her husband like this, she didn't say anything. Zeus Hitayo looked at his parents, disappointed and angry. He suppressed the anguish in his heart and said, Yuen Hua went to live somewhere else and won't be back today. What? Mother Zhu sneered, not coming back. It would be better not to come back. I will let the second child's family move in tomorrow. Don't forget to tell her that I have plenty of ways to treat her. And that father, his daughter has been married for several years. He still lives at his daughter's house and is quite thick-skinned. When Zeus Hitayo heard his mother's words, his face became even more ugly. Seeing his son like this, Zhu's father scolded him, shut up, what are you talking about? I really didn't expect that you would treat Yuen Hua and Xiao Xiao like this. Mom, I am your son. You like the second brother so much. You go back. You keep bringing things to the second brother's house. Let's turn a blind eye. I just closed my eyes and stopped talking. Not to mention that Yuen Hua was not happy, and I was not happy either. My second brother is your son, so I am not afraid of you treating me like this. I am sad and sad. Zhu's mother was stunned. She didn't expect her son, who had always been docile, to speak to her like this. She immediately became angry and said, You are such an unfilial thing. If you have a daughter-in-law, you will no longer want your mother. Zhu's father was stunned. He didn't expect his wife to be like this. It was a bit embarrassing. If it were before, Zeus Hitayo would have admitted his mistake long ago, and he was really angry today. Yuen Hua has notified the lawyer to prepare the divorce agreement, and it will be delivered to me tomorrow. Zeus Hitayo said coldly, Mom, your son's wife and children are about to be separated. Are you satisfied now? Are you happy? Divorce, Mother Zhu exclaimed, how dare she? How dare she? Why don't you dare? Everything you eat and use is earned by Yuen Hua. My monthly salary of 400 yuan cannot provide you with such a good material life. Zeus Hitayo sneered, thinking of divorce made him feel very uncomfortable. He likes Yuen Hua very much and hopes to live a good life with Yuen Hua. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1158. 1156. But this prerequisite must be solved by his parents. Before getting married, he thought his mother was a reasonable person, but after getting married, he gradually realized that this was not the case. But he was afraid of his mother's nagging and kept running away. She is a member of the Zhu family when she marries into our Zhu family, and the money she earns naturally belongs to our Zhu family. Zhu's mother said, she wants a divorce, right? Give her nothing and let her clean up and leave the house. Give it to that little bastard to see what kind of man she can marry. When Zhu's Hitayo heard this, he couldn't believe it and said, now is a new society, don't talk about those old ideas. You are still a retired university teacher and a high intellectual. You can't behave like those ignorant old ladies. Demon. Becoming a monster? My son said she was a monster? Zhu's mother couldn't breathe, almost fainted, and was on the verge of collapse. Hitayo, please stop saying a few words. I will talk about your mother later. Don't be angry. Go and apologize to Yuanhua tomorrow and coax him back, Zhu's father said to smooth things over, but he also felt that this time it was a bit too much. Zhu's Hitayo smiled bitterly, turned and left. Zhu's mother pointed at Zhu's Hitayo and cursed, saying, you have no conscience, you raised him in vain. Okay, please stop saying a few words, Father Zhu said, my son is right. The expenses of this family are basically paid by the daughter-in-law, and even this yard was bought by the daughter-in-law. It's good for us to live here, so don't act like a monster. Just bring some things to the second child's house, and then try to instigate them to divorce. Isn't that nonsense? That woman is just talking. She's trying to scare us. Just ignore her and come back automatically after a while, Mother Zhu said proudly, not caring at all. Zhu's Hitayo didn't sleep well all night, especially when he saw in the video that his mother didn't give Xiao Xiao anything to eat yesterday. Xiao Xiao was hungry, so he ate cool biscuits secretly, but his mother actually punished Xiao Xiao and asked her to force to stand outside. Zhu's Hitayo felt guilty. He got up early the next day and wanted to buy some breakfast and take him over to see his wife and daughter. But Zhu's mother was not happy. She kept saying that she was not feeling well and asked Zhu's Hitayo to take her to the hospital. Even though Zhu's Hitayo was angry, he had no choice but to send his mother to the hospital. After a messy checkup, the money in his wallet was almost spent. The test results came out and his mother was fine. This made Zhu's Hitayo even more angry. His mother was preventing him from visiting Yuanhua and his daughter. But this is his mother. Zhu's Hitayo can't scold or beat his mother. Zhu's Hitayo packed up and was about to go to Yuanhua's place to visit. Unexpectedly, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes came to the house. Hello, is this Mr. Zhu's Hitayo? The middle-aged man asked politely with a smile on his face. Zhu's Hitayo was stunned and asked, I am Zhu's Hitayo, who are you? I am Li Jing, Ms. Yuanhua's attorney. This is the divorce agreement I drafted based on Ms. Yuanhua's wishes. Ms. Yuanhua has read it this morning and confirmed her signature, Li Jing said, reading from the official document. He took out several pieces of agreement stapled together from his bag and handed it to Zhu's Hitayo. Zhu's Hitayo was stunned. He didn't expect to get the divorce agreement today. This time, he really realized that Yuanhua was going to divorce him. Mr. Zhu, seeing that Zhu's Hitayo was lost in thought, Li Jing reminded him softly, should we discuss the content of the agreement in person, or should you read it yourself first, and then we can make an appointment to discuss it in detail? Zhu's Hitayo said blankly, I'll take a look first, you go back first, I will communicate with Yuanhua. Zhu's Hitayo is very confused now, but he still has not forgotten that Yuanhua's idea is the most important. If you simply talk to a lawyer, you are preparing for divorce. But he still loves Yuanhua, he still wants to have this family, and he doesn't want a divorce. Okay, now the formal agreement has been given to you, please sign it. Li Jing took out a record report. Zhu's Hitayo had no choice but to sign under Li Jing's gaze, indicating that he had received it. After Li Jing left, Zhu's Hitayo came back in despair, sat on the sofa, held his head and choked. Has his marriage reached this point? Seeing his son like this, Father Zhu asked cautiously, "Son, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere?" Zhu's Hitao raised his head, his eye circles were already red, and said, "Now I'm getting divorced, are you satisfied this time?" Father Zhu was stunned, and then asked, "How do you say this? What did that person do just now?" "That's Yuan who is attorney," Zhu's Hitao said, "this is our divorce agreement." Father Zhu obviously did not expect that Yuan Hua had actually asked someone to deliver the divorce agreement. He had doubts about what his wife had said before and said, "Zhitao, go and coax Yuan Hua and say something nice." The couple had a bedside quarrel over the bed. "If you don't go, how can we reconcile? If you step down, Yuan Hua might come back. The key now is not just our husband and wife problem, but also what you and mom did, which Yuan Hua can't accept." Zhu's Hitao said, "Before we got married, mom said Yuan Hua had a bad background. Why is his family not so good? A girl graduated from a prestigious university and is so talented. She is better than me anyway. How do you treat Yuan Hua after she gets married? How much more noble than a farmer?" When Father Zhu heard this, he was speechless. Zhu's mother came out of the room and said, "You also said that Yuan Hua is so rich and talented. If I didn't suppress her, you would still be able to hold your head high in this family." It turned out that Zhu Mu had this idea. Zhu's Hitao was stunned and immediately felt bitter. It was all useless to him. "Mom, Yuan Hua has never looked down on me because of my income. On the contrary, you often say this and that, and are unkind to Xiao Xiao, which affects our relationship as a couple. I'm getting divorced now, so you should be happy," Zhu's Hitao said bitterly. "A good home is just gone. If you get a divorce, get a divorce. You are so powerful, but you are still afraid of divorce. You are now the coach of the national team," Zhu's mother said firmly, determined not to let Yuan Hua climb on her head. "Since you want to divorce, let's divide it properly." "Property? Divide the property?" Zhu's Hitao smiled bitterly. "I can't divide anything after divorce." "Why?" Zhu's mother said, "even if the premarital property is not included, the family's income has been a lot in recent years. No matter what, you also have a share." Father Zhu also felt strange and asked, "What's going on?" Zhu's Hitao said with a bitter face, "We signed an agreement before we got married. After we have children, our joint property belongs to our children. In other words, after I get divorced, I have nothing, everything is small. A former colleague of mine divorced her husband entirely because of her mother-in-law's preference for her brother-in-law's family. When she comes, she will eat, or after a while, she will take whatever she can get, and her husband will eat it. My uncle's family is not poor. My friend finally filed for divorce after the new lightwave stove he bought at home disappeared. It's terrible to have such a mother-in-law on the stall. // The Sweetness of the Seventies. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1159. 1157. Zhu's Hitao's words were nonsense to Mother Zhu's ears. "What?" Mother Zhu sneered, "how can this be done? That's obviously yours." "Haha, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao is my child, why can't he inherit my things? Besides, my little salary is not enough to give you your living expenses. All the family expenses are Yuan Hua's, so I don't know shame in arguing," Zhu's Hitao said. This time, he finally understood. If he can't correct his attitude and continues to be as quarrelsome as before, the divorce will be finalized. The only thing that can save the marriage now is to correct the attitude and handle the parents' matters well. What does it mean to have no shame in fighting? Even if we are divorced, we still have to fight, Mother Zhu said, that Xiao Xiao is the child of our Zhu family. If we fight for custody rights, the property in the future will not belong to our Zhu family. His mother was determined to divorce him. That's Xiao Xiao, not from the Zhu family. Zhu's Hitao said, don't think about taking things from Xiao Xiao to support my second brother's family. I don't agree. Even if we get divorced, I won't fight for Xiaoxiao's support. Quan, I feel safe when Xiao Xiao is around Yuanhua, but I don't feel comfortable when I'm around you. What's wrong with you not giving Xiao Xiao snacks a day? I can't eat my own. Zhu's Hitao woke up after watching the video recording at home yesterday. He was so disappointed in his mother. It was all his fault before, and his mother, who had been tolerating him, didn't say anything, so it turned into condoning. Am I not feeling well? Zhu's mother used strong words, not because she felt guilty for not loving her granddaughter, but instead used strong words. Haha, are you feeling uncomfortable? Zhu's Hitao sneered, I took you for a checkup today. I checked you up and down, but nothing was wrong. You just did it? It doesn't matter if you do it yourself, I still have to be your son. Look. When your eldest son's wife and children are separated, you will feel at ease and happy. When Zhu's father came in from outside, he heard his son and his wife quarreling. Zhitao, what did you say? No matter what you say, she is still your mother. Father Zhu said, hurry up and apologize to your mother. Apologize, Zhu's Hitao sneered, my mother was wrong, but you were not wrong? When Xiao Xiao was starved and punished, as a grandfather, you couldn't say anything. But you, just drinking tea over there, drinking well. Yuanhua bought the best tea, so you don't feel guilty when you drink it. Father Zhu was stunned, he didn't expect his son to be so angry. I was still very angry at first, but when I heard my son say this, I didn't know how to continue. After all, he did not care about or love Zhu Xiao Xiao, so when the old lady was not nice to Xiao Xiao, he would turn a blind eye and not take it to heart. But my son is not at home, how could he know? How did you know? Father Zhu asked, a little surprised. Haha, how do I know? Zhu's Hitao sneered, it's all recorded on the video at home. Yuanhua has never been a weak woman. The reason why she tolerates you is because she treats you as elders, but yours, again and San hurt her and Xiao Xiao and wanted to divide the common property of our husband and wife in Xiaoxiao's name. It's impossible to get a dime from you just because of your abuse of Xiao Xiao. With you like this, elders, the judge will only give custody of the child to me, a useless father, unless he is blind. When Zhu's Hitao said this, his eyes were red, and he couldn't bear it anymore, and tears flowed down. The more he talked, the more he felt that Yuanhua would never forgive him. Because Yuanhua has always been a woman who must follow her words and achieve results in her actions. Maybe the divorce agreement is really not just talk. Father Zhu and Mother Zhu looked at each other, at a loss. Especially Zhu's mother was very puzzled and asked, what video, where is it? The tapes are all in the study room. Zhu's Hitao said, after I watched it last night, I also understand why Yuanhua is so angry and doesn't want to have sex with me. Are you happy now? After saying that, Zhu's Hitao left in despair. When he arrived at the unit, he still had the divorce agreement in his hand and quickly put it into his briefcase. He Tian came over for training and saw Zhu's Hitao who looked unnatural. But he Tian didn't ask any more questions, she believed Yuanhua could handle it well. In the evening, Zhu's Hitao went home. Mother Zhu said proudly, I have hidden those videos. If the woman Yuanhua can't find them, there will be no evidence. Haha, that's a backup, Zhu's Hitao said. He used to think that his mother was a shrewd person, but now he feels that she is a woman who is misled by her cleverness. Ah, Mother Zhu was stunned, what do you mean? This is the copy at home, which is a backup. In addition, there is a more complete copy at Yuanhua. Zhu's Hitao said, up to now, all you think about is destroying evidence, not feeling guilty. You are so cruel, my heart. After saying that, Zhu's Hitao drove away and went to Jinhua community to see if he could get in. After her son left, Mother Zhu was stunned and cursed, "That little bitch Yuanhua is very scheming. I told you not to overdo it, but you just did it." Father Zhu said, "Now that Yuanhua is serious this time, we will definitely not get any benefits. If Yuanhua really divorces Hitayo will hate us forever. I am his biological mother," Mother Zhu said nonchalantly. "No matter what, she will not deny me as her biological mother. You better not be so confident." "I think this time my son already hates us," Zhu's father said. "So do you. The child is young, so it's nothing to give her something to eat, but you just don't want to see her. Why don't you tell me when you're going to see me earlier?" "Where have you gone earlier?" Mother Zhu sneered, as if she didn't care, and went to the dining room to eat without paying any attention to him. Let's say that Zhu's Hitayo came to Jinhua community. Finally arrived at the door of the house and knocked on the door. Yuanhua, Yuanfu, and Xiao Xiao are eating. Hearing someone knocking on the door, Yuanhua got up and went to open the door. Seeing that it was Zhu's Hitayo, Yuanhua had no intention of letting Zhu's Hitayo in, but said softly, "Have you read the agreement?" Zhu's Hitayo's eyes were sore and he choked with sobs. "Yuanhua, can't you give me a chance?" Yuanhua shook his head gently and said, "I have given you many opportunities, but you have never cherished them. I have said everything that needs to be said. You also know who I am, and I do what I say. After so many years of marriage, no matter how many grievances I suffered, I didn't talk about divorce. I thought I could bear it, but now I can't bear it. Moreover, after I got together with you, I no longer feel like we are happily married since 2 years ago. There is no need to continue the marriage." When Zhu's Hitayo heard this, his thoughts were further confirmed. "It was me who let you down," Zhu's Hitayo said. "It was me who ignored you and your little feelings for the sake of so-called family harmony." Yuanhua's nose felt a little sore after hearing this. She didn't want to see it come to this step, but she had to take this step. Recommend her new book Rebirth of Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent. After Mo Xiaomi was reborn, she decided to hug the thigh, but accidentally hugged the rich man's third leg, so the rich man became angry. If he wanted to hug him, he would hug him for the rest of his life and he was not allowed to let go. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Xing Cao. Chapter 1160. 1158. Zhu's Hitayo stared at Yuanhua. Yuanhua's determination made him feel sad, but he had no position to blame Yuanhua himself. It's his fault. At this moment, Zhu Xiaoxiao came out from behind her mother and looked at her father with a timid expression. Seeing his daughter like this, Zhu's Hitayo felt even more guilty and said, "Xiaoxiao, are you still feeling uncomfortable now?" Zhu Xiaoxiao shook his head and said, "I'm fine." "Dad, are you hungry? Have you eaten?" "Dad is not hungry," Zhu's Hitayo choked and said, "Xiaoxiao, go and eat quickly." In fact, Zhu's Hitayo didn't even eat well today. Now he could smell the aroma of rice and his stomach growled unsatisfactorily. "Come in and have something to eat," Yuanhua said. "Even if we are divorced, I am still a little dad. We got married because of our feelings. At the same time, I don't want us to divorce as enemies. After all, the child's small, we have to think about our children." Zhu's Hitayo wanted to leave, but was reluctant to leave, so he forced himself in. When Zhu Xiaoxiao saw her father coming, she quickly served him rice happily, but she was short and couldn't reach it. Yuanhua took the bowl handed over by Zhu Xiaoxiao, served Zhu's Hitayo rice, and said, "Come over and have some." When Father Yuan saw Zhu's Hitayo coming over, he was busy eating. "Dad, I'm sorry," Zhu's Hitayo said softly, apologizing to the old man. Well, Father Yuan did not raise his head, but just ate while ignoring Zhu's Hitayo. Yuanhua didn't say anything. Instead, Zhu Xiaoxiao personally picked up the food for his father. After all, it is the nature of a father and a daughter. Even though her father is usually busy with work and does not take her to play, she still likes her father and feels sorry for him. Zeus Hitayo has a sour nose. Such a good daughter, how could he let his parents misbehave before and pretend not to know? No, this marriage cannot be divorced. After a divorce, his wife becomes someone else's wife, and his daughter becomes someone else's daughter. Now between the two of them were his parents. If you want to save their marriage, you must first do a good job on the parents' side. It's getting late, you should go back. Yuan Hua saw that it was already 8 o'clock and didn't want Zeus Hitayo to stay here. She didn't want to see the interaction between her daughter and Zeus Hitayo, and was worried that she would be soft-hearted again. Well, I'll go back first, Zeus Hitayo said. Yuan Hua, can we talk? Yuan Hua didn't want to argue with Zeus Hitayo in front of the children, so he nodded and said, okay, I'll go down with you. Yuan Hua put on his coat and followed Zeus Hitayo down. Yuan Hua, whether you forgive me or not, I won't tolerate my parents this time, Zeus Hitayo said. I did something wrong before, really wrong. Can you please give me a small favor for your sake, chance? Yuan Hua shook his head and said, Hitayo, I am a person with delicate emotions. I will devote myself wholeheartedly to relationships, but now I have been disappointed in our love, so I will not give in. Zeus Hitayo finally couldn't help it, and burst into tears, saying, it's all my fault, it's all my fault. You have communicated with me before, but I did not take effective methods to solve it. I was always evading and always deceiving myself. Such an attitude has harmed myself and ruined our relationship. Yuan Hua's eyes were complicated, and she knew that Zeus Hitayo understood, but was unwilling to change, at least not for her. Now if she doesn't file for divorce, maybe the situation will continue. That's how people are, they have such luck deep down in their hearts, and it's even natural. You know everything, Yuan Hua choked and said, in that case, let's get together and part ways. Although you didn't care about Xiao Xiao before, I know you love Xiao Xiao, so don't argue with me about Xiao Xiao. 2 months ago, Zeus Hitayo murmured to himself. He didn't feel it. How slow he was. Yes, 2 months ago, Yuan Hua said, did you know? That day I saw your nephew coming to my house with a bag of delicious food in his hand. He couldn't finish it and threw it on the ground. But what about our little one, crying? I asked your nephew for food. He was so greedy that he could only pick up food from the ground. But your parents were sitting there motionless, as if they didn't see. Xiao Xiao is the child I worked hard to give birth to. My dearest child, no one can mess with me. Zeus Hitayo's face turned red when he heard Yuan Hua's excited words. His parents had gone too far. No wonder Yuan Hua was so angry. It is estimated that Yuan Hua also hates him in his heart. I'm sorry, Zeus Hitayo said sadly, I was wrong. Every time I see you and your parents, I think of my daughter crying and picking up food from the ground to eat. I can't forgive myself, you and your parents, Yuan Hua said. Over at Mao Alley, I have stopped all supplies. Also, in the agreement, I have designated our joint property as a small name. At the same time, I have left you a house that is not far from where you work. Our work is very close, and we still have some savings at home. Each of us will take half of it. I won't ask you for child support, I will raise it myself. Yuan Hua's words pierced Zeus Hitayo's heart. Although his tone was calm, it made Zeus Hitayo feel uncomfortable. Yuan Hua. Zeus Hitayo finally couldn't bear it anymore, squatted down, covered his face and cried loudly. I blame his parents for this, but I blame him even more because he made such a good woman feel wronged and hurt, and let his daughter be abused. He is neither a qualified husband nor a qualified father. Zeus Hitayo's crying made Yuan Hua's eyes red, but she would never look back on what she had decided. Parents cannot choose, but wives and husbands can choose. In order not to suffer such torture in the future, Yuanhua resolutely chose to leave. After a while, Zhu's Hitao stood up and said, I am no longer qualified to have you. It was me who failed to fulfill my original promise, failed to love and take care of you properly, and made you and Xiao Xiao suffer. After I go back, I will contact attorney Li. Yuanhua nodded and said, okay. Zhu's Hitao did not look back and leave, he was afraid that he would cry again. When he got to the car, Zhu's Hitao lay on the steering wheel and didn't want to leave for a long time. Yuanhua went upstairs and looked at the familiar car below on the balcony. This was also the argument she had planned in advance. Since this marriage couldn't last any longer, let's end it in a dignified way. Little grandparents are nothing, but Zhu's Hitao is a little father after all. In order for the child to receive normal care in the future, she will not break up with Zhu's Hitao. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1161. 1159. It wasn't until Zhu's Hitao's car left that Yuanhua returned to the living room from the balcony. Father Yuan had already put Xiao Xiao to sleep, stood up and asked softly, Xiahua, are you really going to get divorced? In Yuan's heart, he already had children, so it was better not to divorce. As long as Zhu's Hitao could correct himself, as long as Zhu's Hitao's parents could get better. After listening to his father's words, Yuanhua shook his head slightly and said, actually, Zhu's Hitao knows everything in his heart. He just doesn't want to change. Now he feels sad because he feels guilty for me and the child. But I forgive him once, but his parents it won't change, and it will still be like this in the future. In that case, our marriage will always be full of quarrels. It would be better for both of us to separate now. At least we won't break up, and there will still be some friendship. When his daughter mentioned Zhu's Hitao's parents, Yuan's father stopped talking. After a while, Father Yuan slowly said, it is said that high-ranking intellectuals have quality, but why do I feel that Zhu's Hitao's parents are just like the family of the two men in our village? They want to get involved in all the good things, but they don't want to contribute. Humph, who knows, Yuanhua said. Originally, she was also interested in Zhu's Hitao's scholarly family and felt that people from such a family would have rich heritage and connotation. But now she really thought wrong. Yuanhua is determined to get a divorce. Hey, you have been big-minded since you were a child. Since you want a divorce, then get a divorce, Father Yuan said. I live in your house. When your parents-in-law came over, they treated me as if I was begging for food. I wanted to take Xiao Xiao away, but they were sarcastic, so I went out for a walk. I didn't expect them to abuse Xiao Xiao like this. It was me who failed to fulfill my responsibility and made Xiao Xiao feel wronged. No one thought that they would go so far as to favor sons over daughters. Yuanhua smiled bitterly. Okay, anyway, I have made complete preparations. When the divorce happens, Zhu's Hitao is just a little dad, and other people will not matter. We can live a good life from now on and take good care of Xiao Xiao. Okay, Dad will listen to you, you just need to think carefully, Father Yuan said. Although I have no knowledge, I think it is better to live a happy life than to live a life of frustration. Thank you, Dad, Yuanhua said gratefully. No matter what happens outside, at least she still has her father's support, Sister Tian Tian, several good sisters, and a career. After Zhu's Hitao returned, he locked himself in the room and drank. When I got up the next morning, I made an appointment with Yuanhua's lawyer Li Jing to discuss it in a tea house outside. Mr. Zhu, what are your requests? Li Jing said, taking out his notebook. Zhu's Hitao thought for a while and said, I don't have any requirements, I just want to say that I don't want that house, and I don't want the family's savings, just treat it as a small alimony. As for my car, I will keep it. Li Jing was stunned. That was a lot of money, and a house was also very valuable. Mr. Zhu, are you sure? Li Jing couldn't believe it. Are you sure you don't want a deposit or a house? No, Zhu's Hitao said, I'm not a good husband, nor a good father. Now that I'm divorced, I don't want Yuanhua's money. After all, Yuanhua earned it, and I deserve it. Okay, let me write it down first. I will communicate with my client as soon as possible and then give you an answer, Li Jing said, carefully writing it down in his notebook. Well, that's okay, Zhu's Hitao said in a low voice, I have to go to work, so I'll leave first. Zhu's Hitao came to the sports center. He Tian trained seriously and did not have much communication with Zhu's Hitao. Zhu's Hitao didn't dare to say much in front of He Tian because of Yuanhua's matter. In fact, he wanted to ask He Tian for help and persuade Yuanhua, but if He Tian knew what his parents did, He Tian would probably agree with Yuanhua's divorce and would not even be willing to be his team member. If He Tian proposes to change the coach, other coaches in the team will rush to become He Tianation's coach. Zhu's Hitao knew Yuanhua's temper and would not look back. That's a determined woman. Now that the marriage is like this, he can only take good care of his career and cannot make any inappropriate moves in his career. Otherwise, he is a complete loser. Li Jing over there found Yuanhua and told Yuanhua about Zhu's Hitao's request. He doesn't want a house? He doesn't want a deposit either, Yuanhua asked. Then Zhu's Hitao would have no place to live, and the coach's salary might not be enough. Yes, he doesn't want it, Li Jing said. What about your side? He has a salary, no savings, and can live a living, but he doesn't need a house. Where will he live? Yuanhua frowned. I agree not to give him any property, but I will give him a house with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. At least he can live there. Guarantee his life. When Li Jing heard Yuanhua's words, he was stunned again, then smiled and said, This is the first time I have seen a divorced couple like you. You are not fighting for property, but showing humility to each other. Hey, if you can, don't get divorced. After hearing this, Yuanhua smiled bitterly and said, There is no love, and there is not much so-called family affection. That's why I want a divorce. I don't want my daughter to live in the disgust of others, and I don't want to live in trivial quarrels. Haha, in that case, as an old friend, I won't persuade you anymore, Li Jing said. Then what are you going to do? Yuanhua thought for a while and said, You put my house in Daihua community under Zhu's Hitao's name in the contract. After all, he is a young father. We divorced because we had no feelings and because of the friction in life. So I hope he lives well. Don't tell him that when we go through the divorce procedures, I will personally give him the key. Is it necessary to do this? Li Jing asked rhetorically. As a barrister, he has always helped others fight for their interests, but this was the first time he pushed his interests to the outside world. It's necessary, Yuanhua said. The little idol is her father. I hope her father can always be her idol instead of a down-and-out person. At the same time, you can also see that he doesn't want to have mine. Property shows that he is a good person. Li Jing was a little lost, then nodded and said, Actually, you are a good woman, but he didn't cherish you properly, and his family didn't cherish you properly either. Yuanhua smiled bitterly and sighed, Times have passed and everything will pass. As for whether to cherish it or not, it just depends on the human heart. The human heart is not enough, so I want to swallow the elephant. Li Jing nodded and said, Okay, I will make a new agreement according to what you said. Okay, how long will this take? Yuanhua asked. I'll finish it tomorrow, you can take a look, Li Jing said. Is that okay? Can I have an afternoon? Yuanhua asked. I want to cut the knot quickly and don't want to delay it any longer. The current state of affairs has seriously affected me and kept me awake at night. I want to end it as soon as possible. It's been hot lately, So be careful to prevent heat stroke. The Sweetness of the 70s. Author, Chi Sing Cao. Chapter 1162. 1160. Time is a bit tight, as Yuanhua is her client and she gets a lot of money from Yuanhua every year. Now it's up to him to realize his potential and let Yuanhua know that her money was not in vain. Li Jing looked at the watch on his wrist and nodded, okay, but I can only work here. This is Yuanhua's office. Yuanhua nodded and said, I'll lend you the office. Okay, we can finish it in the afternoon, Li Jing said, then took out the agreement, revised it, and copied it. Yuanhua looked at it, nodded and said, okay, that's it. Then sign your name. In the afternoon, Li Jing went to the national swimming team to find Zhu's Hitao. Zhu's Hitao saw Li Jing, and then the two came out together. Mr. Zhu, this has been revised according to your requirements, Li Jing said, taking out 2 divorce agreements. Zhu's Hitao was not in the mood to read it, so he took it and signed it, then turned and left. Facing the divorce lawyer, Zhu's Hitao really couldn't say the word thank you. He didn't want a divorce, but he had to. Li Jing said from behind, Mr. Zhu, Ms. Yuanhua will be waiting for you at the door of the DC District Civil Affairs Bureau next Monday. I know. Zhu's Hitao paused for a moment, then started walking forward again. Still getting divorced. Even if Zhu's Hitao told Xiao Xiao, Yuanhua was not willing to give in. It was obvious that he was determined and extremely disappointed in him. No matter how much he tried to persuade him to stay, Yuanhua would not change his mind, which was disappointing, but Zhu's Hitao did not want to have a quarrel with Yuanhua that would consume the last of his friendship. Originally, Zhu's Hitao wanted to tell his parents that he was about to get divorced, but when he thought of what his parents had done, he stopped talking. With his mother's temperament, he would definitely make a big fuss and make a big fuss. Even if he ended up in court, he wouldn't get an extra point, not to mention that he gave up voluntarily. So Zhu's Hitao didn't say anything and became very silent. However, Zhu's mother is still self-righteous and thinks that her son will solve everything like before, and there is no need for her to worry. It's just that the vegetables, meat, and other food delivered to Maohutong every day are gone. Zhu's mother cursed in the yard, saying that Yuanhua was going to starve her to death. Zhu's Hitao was not in the mood to pay attention to his parents. He took his briefcase, ID card, and household registration book to the Civil Affairs Bureau of DC District. Seeing his son leaving, Father Zhu was a little uneasy and felt a little bad. He said, should we talk to our son and daughter-in-law? What are you talking about? Whoever speaks first will be the first to bow his head, Mother Zhu said. If we don't stand up, then Yuanhua will not be able to go to heaven in the future. Hold on, don't be in a hurry. You should eat and drink. At this moment, Aunt Wu, the nanny of the family, came over cautiously and said, Old lady, the vegetables and meat have not been delivered today. I will cook some porridge and some side dishes in the morning to deal with it. But there will be no dishes at noon. Ever since Ms. Yuanhua's father-in-law and mother-in-law came, it was as if the emperor and the empress dowager were here. If it weren't for Yuanhua's high salary, she would have quit working long ago. She is also a university teacher, but she is no better than the landlady she used to be. She is mean and full of evil intentions. Ah, Zhu's mother was stunned. There are no vegetables, don't you know how to buy them? Usually it's Ms. Yuanhua who orders it, Aunt Wu said. This month's payment hasn't been paid yet, so I won't give it away. When she heard that she wanted money, Zhu's mother was not happy. She has been here for more than a year and has never received a penny. Anyway, the food she eats belongs to his son and does not need to be paid. Then go and ask my little mother to pay, Mother Zhu said. Of course she was not willing to pay. Aunt Wu had already received Yuanhua's explanation, and said with a grimace, I can't find Ms. Yuanhua. By the way, old lady, I have to pay my salary today, and the whole family is waiting for money to live. You are so generous. You are kind, you will definitely pay me a salary, right? Mother Zhu was stunned again, frowned and said, "Where can I give you money? Ask Yuan Hua for it." Aunt Wu was unhappy and said, "You are an old lady. Aren't you always true to your word in this family? We have eaten, but now we don't want to give money to buy groceries or pay wages. How can there be such a good thing in the world? You, get out of here, or I'll fire you now," Mother Zhu said sternly, still unwilling to pay. Aunt Wu took off the apron from her body, threw it on the ground, and said, "Get out of here, you think I want to serve you, an old pious woman. But before you leave, give me your salary of 400 yuan. If you don't pay me, I will go to the street office and yell at your door. Look at the ugly face of a capitalist landowner who exploits people." Aunt Wu, a widowed mother, raised her daughter and sent her daughter to college. She was not someone to be trifled with. Zhu's mother was very mean-spirited, but she was no match for Aunt Wu, who was hanging around in the market during the quarrel. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. "Okay, forget about me and you, give me my salary quickly," Aunt Wu said. "With your stinginess, I'm afraid that people will still suffer if there is no salary in the future. Give me my salary quickly." Mother Zhu was furious, but she couldn't persuade Aunt Wu, so she had to go get the money for Aunt Wu. 400 yuan, Mother Zhu feels very sorry for her, but if she doesn't give it, this shrew will keep moaning inside. Aunt Wu took the money and left triumphantly. Before leaving, she said, "Hey, I finally don't have to serve this difficult old woman anymore." Aunt Wu left, and Mother Zhu was so angry that her eyes were red. Father Zhu came out of the study and said cautiously, "This matter is serious. My daughter-in-law obviously doesn't care about this place anymore. No matter what, a monk who can run away can't run away from the temple anyway." Zhu's mother scolded, "If you have the ability, that Yuan Hua will never come back. I will go buy groceries in a while," calls Hiban, and ask his family to come over for dinner. Zhu's father didn't want the second child's family to get involved at this special time, so he didn't want to call. "If you don't want to fight, I'll fight." Zhu's mother pushed Zhu's father away, then called her younger son and asked them to come over and have dinner together in the evening. Of course Zhu's Hiban and his wife are willing to come over, because every time they come over, they can bring back large and small bags, which saves the family a lot of money. Anyway, this was given to them by their mother, and they didn't ask their sister-in-law for it, so they felt at ease with it. Let's say that Zhu's Hiban arrived at the door of the DC District Civil Affairs Bureau, and Yuan Hua was already waiting there. Yuan Hua is wearing a gray windbreaker, with long curly hair tied behind his head, like an independent magnolia flower in the wind. He didn't cherish such a beautiful woman, and now she was leaving him completely. Zhu's Hitayo was heartbroken, but nothing could be changed. Some things, once they happen, it's too late to regret them. Yuan Hua saw Zhu's Hitayo and said softly, "Let's go. Please vote for Kikai's new book Rebirth of the Sweet Wife, The Strongest Agent. We urgently need your votes."